It started with the wedding rehearsal dinner, a small gathering in the backyard of my in-laws' house, just family, close friends, a couple of drinks, and a lot of awkward small talk. My wife Emily looked stunning that night. Her dress was tight in all the right places, her hair swept up, her smile bright. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have her. Honestly, I was proud to be walking into this new chapter with her. That's what made everything so fucking terrible. We just finished the toast and I was feeling good, relaxed, maybe a little tipsy. Emily leaned in close, her lips brushing my ear. "I'll be right back," she whispered, then disappeared into the house. I didn't think much of it. She wanted a quick minute alone, maybe to check her phone or grab a glass of water. I kept chatting with my brother, who was drunk enough to start telling stories about his ex that no one needed to hear. Then I saw her, not from across the yard, but close enough. Emily walking briskly toward the patio door, her face tight, her eyes scanning left and right. She slipped inside, quick and quiet like. She knew I was watching. That tiny flicker of suspicion sparked something, an instinct I didn't want to ignore. My stomach clenched. I felt the blood drain from my face and heat rise to my cheeks. I didn't have to guess. I had seen her too many times before, caught her in little lies, dismissed it as paranoia. But now, that wasn't paranoia. That was a gut feeling screaming at me. I left the conversation, pushing through the crowd and headed toward the house. The backyard was filled with the din of laughter, but all I could focus on was the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I quietly slipped inside, moving toward the living room. That's when I saw her, Emily, sitting on the sofa, her phone in her hand, frozen. I could see her face from the door, pale, her eyes glassy. Something about her posture felt guilty. I stepped in closer, my shoes silent on the carpet. That's when I saw the message on her screen. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Missed you today." A name I didn't recognize, accompanied by a heart emoji. My stomach dropped. I clenched my fists, feeling a surge of rage I hadn't expected. The phone slipped from her hand and she looked up at me, her eyes wide and pleading. "It's not what you think," she stammered, voice trembling. But I didn't need her to explain. The evidence was right there, clear as day. Months of sneaking around, hiding something I thought I knew. I stood there, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. All the trust I'd ever had in her crumbled in that moment. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to make her admit what I'd already seen. But I kept my voice cold. "How long?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. "How long has this been going on?" She looked down, tears welling up. "A few months," she whispered. "I swear it was a mistake just that one night. It was stupid, I was drunk, I didn't think it'd happen again." That was a lie, I knew it. I could see it in her eyes. She'd lied so many times before, and this was just the latest. The betrayal hit me like a slap in the face, cold and hard. My mind raced, trying to process how everything I believed about her, about us, had been a lie. The person I loved, the woman I wanted to build a life with, had been sneaking around behind my back. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. The anger was bubbling up, thick and hot. But I knew I couldn't just lash out, not yet. I needed a plan. I needed to know exactly how deep this went, and I needed to make her pay for the trust she'd shattered. I looked her in the eyes, voice steely. "You lied to my face. You lied to me from the beginning." I felt my fists tight. "You think a stupid apology will fix this? You think I'll just forget? No, this isn't just a mistake anymore. It's a betrayal I can't forgive." As I turned to leave, I felt her hand grab my arm. "Please don't do this. I love you. I swear I didn't want it to go this far." But love, that was dead to me now. There was only betrayal and the bitter taste of revenge blooming in my chest. I had no idea what I was going to do yet, but I knew I'd never look at her the same way again. And somehow she was going to regret this moment for the rest of her life. I walked out of that house, every nerve in my body on fire. My mind was already working on my plan. She messed with the wrong guy. This wasn't just about breaking her heart. It was about making her understand that I was done being blind, done being fooled. And trust me, I had plenty of ammunition. I sat in my car for a long time after I left the house. The engine hummed beneath me, but my mind was racing. Every detail from that night kept replaying. Her nervous glance at her phone, the faint tremble in her voice, the message that confirmed everything I'd suspected. It was like a punch to the gut, but at the same time, a spark had ignited inside me. I wasn't about to let this slide. No way. My first move was to gather everything I could find, text messages, emails, photos, anything that proved she'd been sneaking around. I knew if I was going to do this, I had to be smart. I needed proof strong enough to make her regret every second of her betrayal. I knew I'd find more than I wanted, but I didn't care. I was done playing nice. Over the next few days, I started digging through her phone, her emails, her social media. I knew she'd tell herself she was smart enough to hide it all, but women like her, women who cheat and lie, leave traces. They slip up. They get sloppy. And she did. I found photos of her, taken from a hotel room, her lips pressed against someone else's, her hair a mess, her face flushed with excitement. There were texts, years of them hidden in plain sight, revealing her ongoing affair with her boss. I had everything I needed. What sealed the deal was the hotel receipt I found in her email. She booked a room for two under an alias, but it was for that same weekend she'd lied about working late. That was the moment I knew I had her. I printed everything out, took screenshots, and saved them securely. I felt like I was building a weapon and I was going to use it. But I wasn't just going to confront her with facts. I needed to turn this into a lesson she'd never forget. That's when I started plotting my revenge. I wasn't interested in just walking away. I wanted her to suffer the way I'd suffered, hurt, humiliated, broken. I wanted her to see what it felt like to be betrayed, really betrayed, and I knew just how to do it. I decided to play it cold, to let her think she still had control. For the next week, I pretended nothing was wrong. I acted normal, smiling, joking, even kissing her good morning. But behind closed doors, I was planning my move. I set up a fake email account, one she'd never suspect, and started texting her boss, posing as someone interested in the same work deal he'd been pushing. I kept the tone friendly, casual. I wanted to see what he'd say. Meanwhile, I bought a cheap GPS tracker and slipped it into her purse when she wasn't looking. Simple, effective. I'd follow her around and see if she was still sneaking off. I knew she'd be stupid enough to keep going. People like her never learn. The tracker gave me enough evidence to confirm she was still seeing him, even after I'd found everything. That was perfect. One night, I waited until she was out of the house. I set up my plan during that time. I had a little black box. I rigged it to record her calls and messages. I wasn't interested in listening to her cry or beg or lie. I just wanted her to know I had her every step of the way. I slipped the recorder into her purse, where I knew she'd find it on her nightstand after I was gone. When she finally came home that night, I was waiting in the shadows, her phone in my hand. She looked surprised, maybe even a little suspicious, but I kept my face neutral. "You've been lying," I said softly, holding up her phone and the evidence I'd collected. "All this time you've been sneaking around with your boss. You think I didn't notice, didn't see the messages, the hotel room?" Her face went white, then red. She stammered, tried to deny it, but it was all there, the messages, the photos. I saw her breath hitch, her chest rising and falling fast. That's when I knew I had her cornered completely. I took a step closer, voice low and steady. "You thought you could get away with it, that I'd never find out. Well, guess what? I'm not some fool anymore. I've got everything, and I'm done pretending this is just a mistake." I paused, watching her crumble. "You're going to regret this, Emily. You're going to regret the day you decided to cheat on me." She broke down then, tears streaming down her face, clutching her stomach like she was in pain. I didn't care. I just wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. I handed her back her phone, still recording. Her eyes pleaded with me, but I had already made up my mind. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to scream. That would give her the satisfaction of knowing she still had power. Instead, I simply turned around and left her standing there, crying. I knew her plan, the one she thought she was controlling, was about to backfire spectacularly. Next, I'd reveal everything to her boss, to her friends, even the world if I had to. The game was on, and I was ready to play it all the way through. Because at the end of the day, there's one thing I learned: cheaters always get caught, and when they do, they pay. Over the next couple of days, I kept my cool on the outside, but inside I was sharpening my axe. I had the evidence, I had a plan, and I knew exactly how I was going to make her regret every sneaky second she'd spent betraying me. I kept telling myself I needed to be calm, calculated. But damn, the anger was starting to boil over. Every time I saw her, I felt that familiar rush of hostility. She was trying to act normal, but I saw the flicker of guilt behind her eyes. She knew I knew, and that made her nervous. Good. My first move was to reach out to her boss. I crafted a message, cold but polite, and sent it from my fake email account. I told him I knew about their affair, that I had proof, and that I was prepared to go public if he didn't back off. I kept it simple, direct. I wanted to threaten just enough to make him realize I wasn't messing around. I didn't want to come across as unhinged. I just wanted him to know I had leverage. A few hours later, I received a reply. His tone was defensive but cautious. He denied everything, of course. Said I was mistaken, that I didn't have any proof, that I should mind my own business. That was a lie. I had everything. Still, I played along, pushing back a little, warning him I wasn't going to let this slide. I knew he'd come back sooner or later, trying to figure out what I knew and how I knew it. Meanwhile, I'd kept following Emily with the GPS tracker. Night after night, I'd watch her slip away, meet him secretly, come back breathless and flushed, all while I pretended to sleep upstairs. It was sickening, but I needed to see how deep this went. I needed her to see I wasn't just some fool she could manipulate anymore. One evening, I followed her to that same hotel they'd used before. I parked across the street, watching her go inside. I felt my fists clenching, the cold fury simmering just beneath the surface. I didn't want to act impulsively, but I also knew I couldn't let her keep cheating, keep lying to my face. That's when I realized I had to do something bold. I went back home, opened my laptop, and started drafting a plan, one that would shake her to her core. No violence, no threats, just a calculated move to make her regret every second she spent betraying me. I decided I'd send her a message from the fake email account, one that looked like it was from someone who knew everything. I'd tell her I was watching, that I had recordings, photos, and proof that she couldn't deny. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, and helpless. The next night, I hit send. I crafted a message with just enough detail to scare her. I know what you're doing. I've seen the texts, the hotel receipts, the photos. I'm watching you. If you don't stop, I'll make sure everyone knows. I left it anonymous, cold, feeling a twisted sense of satisfaction as I imagined her panic. Her face would turn pale when she realized I wasn't bluffing. The following day, her reaction was priceless. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. I caught her in the kitchen, eyes darting around, clutching her phone like it was a lifeline. When I walked in, she froze. "Who sent that?" she whispered, voice trembling. I just looked at her with a cold stare. "That's for you to figure out," I said, "but I suggest you start telling the truth." She broke down then, tears streaming down her cheeks, begging me to believe her, to forgive her. She said she was sorry, that she'd never do it again. But I wasn't buying it. I'd given her enough chances. This was the moment I wanted her to realize she was drowning in her own lies. I told her I was done pretending, that I had more evidence, more surprises, and that I was going to expose her secrets one by one. I explained that I'd been recording her calls and conversations, and I was ready to release everything if she didn't come clean. She looked at me like I was a stranger, her face twisted in desperation. It felt good to see her like that, completely vulnerable. That night, I set up a meeting. I told her I wanted her to come clean, to finally admit everything face to face. I arranged it at a public place, somewhere she couldn't wiggle out of it. I wanted her to see that I wasn't bluffing, that I had nothing to hide anymore. As I waited in that cafe, I felt the weight of what I was about to do. I was about to force her into a corner she couldn't escape. When she arrived, her eyes were haunted. She sat across from me, shaking, trying to explain away her lies, her betrayal, but I cut her off quickly. "No more lies," I said. "I know everything. The hotel, the texts, the meetings, and I've got recordings. You thought you were clever, but you're just a cheating wife who got caught." I slid the USB with the recordings across the table. "Here, listen to this. This is just the beginning." Her face went pale. For a moment she looked like she might break down completely. I saw her hands trembling as she reached for the device. That was the moment I knew I'd already won. I had her. The truth was out, and she was powerless. It felt like finally closing a chapter I'd been living in for months. The betrayal no longer felt like some distant theoretical thing. It was real, raw, and in my hands. My plan was progressing perfectly. Now I just had to wait, but I already knew what I'd do next. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about making sure she paid for the lie she'd been living and for what she'd nearly destroyed. The look on her face after hearing the recordings was priceless. She sat there, trembling, eyes darting around like a trapped animal. Her hands clenched into fists on the table, and I could see the regret, no, panic pouring out of her like a flood. It was exactly what I wanted. I'd already won the first round, now it was just about playing out the final moves. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms slowly. "So, Emily," I said, voice even but cold, "did you really think I wouldn't find out? Did you think you could keep sneaking around forever? All those nights, all those lies, it was so obvious. The hotel receipts, the messages. How stupid do you think I am?" Her lips parted as she tried to speak, but no words came out at first. She looked like she was about to crack, her eyes brimming with tears but still holding onto some stubborn pride. I knew her well enough now. She wasn't going to admit everything just yet. That was fine, I had all the leverage. "You're done," I said quietly. "You fucked up everything, our wedding, our life, our trust, and I'm not going to let you walk away without feeling the full weight of what you did." I paused, watching her face contort with guilt and anger. "Here, what's going to happen? You're going to leave today, you're going to pack your things, and you're going to stay somewhere else. And then I'm going to do what you never expected. I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth." Her eyes widened. "You wouldn't." "Oh, I would," I interrupted. "You think I'm just going to forget this? No, I've got everything recorded, every lie, every sneaky meeting, every kiss. And I'm not just going to keep quiet. I'm going to tell your boss, your friends, your family. Everyone's going to know what kind of person you really are." She looked like she wanted to scream, to deny everything, but she knew better. She was cornered. And I could see the realization sinking in, the fact that her entire scheme was unraveling. Her face was chalk white, every emotion flooding her, fear, shame, and a flicker of something else, anger. "I swear I'll do anything," she whispered, voice cracking. "Please, anything." I cut her off, a bitter smile curling on my lips. "You lied to me for months. That's not just a mistake, it's a choice. And now you have to deal with the consequences." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots of her messages, the hotel booking, the photos. "This is what I have, and it's just the beginning. If I wanted to, I could ruin you completely. But I'm not like that. I just want you to understand, you're not going to get away with this. No more secrets, no more lies. Whatever you're planning next, I suggest you stop now." She blinked rapidly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I love you," she choked out. "I swear it was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I shook my head slowly, feeling the weight of her words. "Love, that's funny, because love doesn't cheat, it doesn't lie, and it sure as hell doesn't betray your partner for months. That's not love. That's selfishness, and it's over now." She looked broken, defeated. Her shoulders sank and her face twisted in anguish. I knew she'd regret this, but I was done feeling guilty. She made her choice, and I was about to make her pay for it big time. I stood up slowly, gesturing toward the door. "You have an hour, pack your things and go. Don't come back. And don't bother contacting me until you've had time to think about what you really want. Because, honestly, I don't think you know anymore." As she stared at me, helpless and crying, I turned and walked out, closing the door behind me with a finality that echoed through the silence. The next step was clear. I was going to make sure this story was known, and she'd never be able to lie her way out of it again. I felt a strange mixture of relief and satisfaction. The betrayal hurt like hell, but I finally had control. Now I just had to execute the final part of my plan, one that would make her regret ever crossing me. This was about making her understand there are consequences, and I was just getting started. The apartment was eerily quiet after she left. I sat on the sofa, staring at the empty space where she'd been just an hour ago. My hands were still trembling a little, adrenaline probably. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears. The whole thing felt surreal, like I'd been living a nightmare I was finally waking up from. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. I wasn't done. I spent the next few hours compiling everything I had into one final, unforgiving package. Photos, messages, hotel receipts, recordings, everything that proved how deep her betrayal ran. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, humiliated, not just for her sake, but as a lesson for any other woman who thought she could cheat and get away with it. Once I had it all organized, I started drafting the message I would send to her boss. I kept the tone cold but professional, making sure to highlight the evidence I'd gathered and how I intended to make it public if he didn't back off. I knew that if I played it right, he'd be the one feeling the heat soon enough. I wanted to scare him just enough to make him rethink crossing me. That night, I hit send. I attached all. The evidence warned him I was prepared to go to the authorities and explained that this was just the start if he continued to contact Emily. I didn't ask for anything in return. I just wanted to see him squirm. And I did. His reply was a mixture of denial and threats, but I wasn't fazed. I knew I had the upper hand now. Next, I turned my attention to Emily. I knew she'd try to reach out, so I disabled her access to my phone and blocked her number. I didn't want her pulling the "I'm sorry, I'll change" routine again. I wanted her to see how serious I was. I wanted her to realize that the game was over, and she was the one who'd lost everything. The next morning, I went to a lawyer, someone who specialized in divorce and personal betrayal. We talked about my options, what I could do to make sure she didn't get away with this without consequences. Filing for divorce was the obvious choice, but I also wanted to make sure she lost her rights, her privacy, and her dignity. I wasn't interested in playing nice anymore. As I walked out of the lawyer office, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Emily. I stared at it, my heart cold. It was a long, tearful apology begging me to forgive her, promising she'd do anything to fix it. I scoffed and deleted her message without reading. She had her chance and she'd blown it. I went straight to the apartment and started packing her things. I didn't tell her I was doing it, I just did it. I grabbed her clothes, her jewelry, her favorite things, and put them in boxes. I was done with her lies, her sneaking around, her betrayal. She needed to see what she'd lost. When I was finished, I left the boxes outside her door with a note. "Consider this your wake-up call. Don't contact me again." I knew she'd come back, maybe try to beg, plead, or lie some more, but I wasn't going to let her. She made her choice, and now she was going to face the consequences. Walking away from that apartment, I felt an odd mix of relief and emptiness. I'd lost my wife, yes, but I'd gained my dignity back. I'd taken control of my life again, and I'd shown her what happens when you betray someone who loves you. That's the thing about betrayal. It comes with a price, and I was determined she'd pay it. As I sat in my car, reflecting, I realized something. This was a turning point. No more secrets. No more lies. From now on, I would only trust myself, and I'd make damn sure no one could ever do this to me again. She thought she was clever, but she was just another person who underestimated what I was capable of when pushed too far. I took a deep breath, started the engine, and drove away. This chapter was closed. The next one, well, I'd just begun to reclaim my life. And honestly, I couldn't wait to see her face when she realized she'd been completely destroyed, not by me, but by her own choices. Trust me, it's a hell of a lot more satisfying when you do it yourself. Sitting there in my car, watching her walk away from the apartment with those empty boxes, I felt a strange calm I hadn't experienced in months. The chaos, the betrayal, the endless nights of feeling like I was losing my mind, all of it was finally over. I'd done what I set out to do. She was gone, and I had reclaimed my life piece by piece. There was a certain clarity in that moment, like finally seeing the storm from a distance, knowing I'd survived it. I knew she'd try to reach out again, maybe with tears or promises to change. That was inevitable, but I wasn't interested. I'd already made my decision. Her words, her apologies, they didn't matter anymore. Not now. All that mattered was the fact that I had taken control, and I'd made her pay for what she did. I took a deep breath and reached into my pocket to grab the keys. As I turned off the ignition, I couldn't help but reflect on everything that led up to this point. The trust I'd given, the dreams we'd shared, the life we'd built, everything shattered in her hands. And yet, despite the pain, I felt relief. For the first time in a long while, I felt free. I exited the car, walking slowly toward my apartment. The silence hit me differently now. No more sneaking around, no more lies. Just peace, raw and unfiltered. I wanted to start fresh, to rebuild what I'd lost, but this time with my eyes wide open. No more blind trust, no more naivety, just honesty with myself. I paused at the door, reached into my pocket again, and pulled out the envelope I'd prepared earlier. Inside were the keys to the house, the divorce papers, and a handwritten note. I slid the note under the door, simple, direct, final. You made your choice. I've moved on. Don't contact me again. I hope you find what you're looking for, but I won't be part of it anymore. The act felt satisfying. It was concrete, a symbol of my decision to leave the past behind and finally close the chapter on her lies. I turned and walked away without looking back, knowing that I'd taken control of my story. As I got into my car, I looked at the horizon where the sky was faintly tinged with the first hints of dawn. It was a new beginning, a clean slate. I'd been betrayed, yes, but I'd also learned something crucial. The only person responsible for protecting yourself is you. And I'd done just that. In the end, I realized that revenge, when done right, is about reclaiming your dignity, your sanity. It's about showing the person who wronged you that their actions have consequences. And more importantly, it's about refusing to be a victim anymore. I'm still healing, still piecing myself back together, but I'm finally in control. And that, for me, is the real victory.